Frank Herbert's Dune. This is almost 800 pages, 794 pages, and really is just a struggle for desert power. Set on the planet of Arrakis, there is spice, for which is the most valuable currency set in this universe. Back in, I think Herbert wrote this in the 60s, so like it definitely can be applied in many different themes. But yeah, so there's all these great houses that are all kind of like vying for control, and then there's an emperor over the whole universe. And then there's also, or I guess there's really just a bunch of factions. This is the best way to describe it. There's the emperor, and then everybody else is kind of underneath that. But really, there's this company that controls the spice distribution and like ownership, and it's mined on Arrakis. But then, in order to travel from planet to planet, the guild of space travelers, space pilots, I don't know, something like that, they use the spice to make predictions on the best way to jump from planet to planet. Apparently, in the far past in this universe, machines and AIs kind of took over, and humans just barely survived, and so it's kind of not even outlawed. It's just not even thought of to have any type of machine that thinks and makes decisions for you. And so they have kind of these specialized roles as humans. And of course, there's the emperor, the company, and then the great houses are vying for slices of that company and directorships, in other words. So it really is a slow burn to start with. I think there's like 300 pages before you even get to Arrakis. So be prepared for that. That isn't a bad thing. It's just like this is a whole universe getting set up, and it's not like a boom, here it is, let's jump into the action kind of thing. It's a I'm gonna build everything, boom, 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 and then we're gonna jump into the story. So yeah, it's good stuff. You're taking part in the preparations and heading to the planet. So just a heads up. This is a long book, but this is a pillar of science fiction. Like absolutely a classic. I can't recommend it enough. It does take some time to get through. That's the only downside. Yep. So the different groups, you've got the Guild of Pilots. You've got the Bene Jesuits, who is the main character's mother. It belongs to the Bene Jesuits. His father is the Duke Atreides, so one of the house. He's in line for one of the houses. The Fremen, which this whole story revolves around, they live in the desert, right? And so the main character gets stranded, and the whole events. I don't want to reveal anything, but he comes to live in the desert and become part of the desert people, the Fremen. There's smugglers. Where there's money to be made, there's always smugglers. And really, this could be taken a number of different ways. This story, there's different themes, that kind of thing. But the biggest one that Frank Herbert wanted to talk about was environmental, right? The struggle to transform this planet from a desert planet to a lush green jungle planet. And it's not the work of one or two or three lifetimes. It's a generational goal, almost a religion built around it to save and conserve water to then be used in different areas to grow and change the planet past the tipping point, and then it becomes this lush world. So that's the goal. And but really that was the big theme, is environmental. But you could take this a number of different ways. You could have the haves and the have-nots, right? They're watering the palm trees, and the servant is like, hey, that's enough for 1,000 people in the city, that you're just feeding the plants. Those people will probably look down at you and hate you because you're feeding the plants the water that they need to live. Warfare, right? These different houses are constantly struggling, but they're almost even like ignoring the people who live in the desert, the Fremen. So that could be a conflict that could be related to any number of human conflicts. That you got religion and mysticism, not just the Bene Gesserit, but also the Fremen themselves. Have this almost environmental goal that becomes a religion. So I did have some bias going in. I really enjoyed this book. I highly recommend it, but I watched like multiple movies, and I actually played Dune 2000 a ton. That was a big game as I was growing up. It came out the same time as StarCraft 2, but it's the same style, just a different, setting and skin and stuff, but along the same lines. Anyways, I was expecting a third house. There's the Emperor, the Harkonnen, and then there's the Atreides, but there was a third group, and I was constantly like, when are they gonna show up? When are they gonna show up? But there's a number of other Dune books, so they could be in there. But anyways, this brought back a lot of fond memories playing that video game when I was much younger. So that could have played into it. Like I said, this is a long book, so it's easy to get discouraged, but it is well worth the trip. So things I really liked, the shields. You can't just walk up to somebody and slice them with a sword if they have a shield on. It has to be a slow in order to get through the shield. So the shields aren't like, oh man, you can't touch me, I have my shield on. It's like there is a way, it slows down the action of a battle. So makes you think about that. And those actually become a hindrance when they get to Dune. So that's another key part of the story. And kind of a, not conflict, but a difference between the way, the houses versus the Fremen work. So very, very interesting there. I really liked the factions. Just, you have competing agendas, competing resources. It's all just kind of intertwines and helps add to the fabric of the story. It's not just one group on the planet, it is everybody vying for the same stuff. So I liked how they survived the storm. I don't want to give it away, but just the fact that they knew to be part of the territory and watch out for the environment rather than just like, oh, it's a storm, we're just going to hunker down. Like they actually knew a way. And I thought that was super cool. The last thing was the guild monopoly. It seems kind of like a bad thing, like, but that really kind of sets the stage for this whole situation in that they have the cards that they can hold. Like, hey, you can't get a weather satellite because, you can't pay us enough spice, which is the currency they need to travel. So people can't really get off the planet unless the guild says yay or nay. So big deal there. Things I didn't like, the Mother of the Tribe ritual. I just feel like if you can change molecules, like, what's stopping you from just, flipping a few molecules to the center of the earth? Like, I know it has to be inside the self, but it just seemed a little bit too much. I don't know how to describe it. I get it. It's part of the story. It's important, but it just bothered me a little bit. So it kind of took me out of the story a little bit when that happened. But another thing in the beginning that I didn't like was the Duke parts. Like you're hearing his justifications, his mindset and all that stuff, and really in all the movies and stuff like that, it's just like he gets taken out right away to save a lot of time. Probably those 300 pages at the beginning before getting to Dune, and so it was almost kind of a surprise for me to hear or read about all of the Duke's activities, which, for better or worse, it just was something that kind of surprised me. Yeah, and I mentioned it before, 300 pages before you even get to Arrakis. So I'm used to like, exciting action to start it off, kind of get you hooked. But this one really, you had to either identify with one of the characters or just kind of, wait it out until they get to the planet. So good stuff. Two quotes that I really liked. The first one is a chapter introduction, and it's really just a quote from a history of, after the fact they recorded all this. There's probably no more terrible instant of enlightenment than one in which you discover your father is a man with human flesh. Whoa, good stuff. Right, like we all look up to our parents as, infallible. They can do anything, and it's just, they're just trying to figure it out just like we are. So, big stuff there. This one here is the Duke giving advice to his son. So, give as few orders as possible, his father had told him once long ago. Once you've given orders on a subject, you must always give orders on that subject. Right? If you do something for them or tell them what to do, right, they're going to come looking for you for advice when something goes wrong. So, giving somebody freedom and autonomy to figure it out for themselves, that could be, not only room for growth, but they'll be able to figure it out in the future too. So, absolutely wonderful book. Dune is an absolutely awesome book. Give it a look, give it a read, and remember to buy your books used.